Oh, hi folks, it's James here. How you all doing? Hope you're good. Just want to show some wonderful record gifts that I've had from across the pond from Chris, BluesVinyl Guy, and also want to do a little quick entry into Chris's contest while I'm here. Thought I'd roll the two things up into one. So Chris has been making videos for a while now. He's called BluesVinyl Guy. I first cottoned onto his channel really because of the blues content. Chris is extremely knowledgeable about the blues, and so that's how I cottoned onto him. But he doesn't just show blues, he shows other things too. He shows classic rock and jazz. Very open-minded guy, very nice chap, and he sent me a message a while back asking if he could send me some records, and I said okay. I mean, it's just one of those incredible things that happens when you befriend somebody, on the airwaves, so to speak, across YouTube, and then they send you some wonderful things. So Chris, I'm completely overwhelmed. So the two things he sent me, both really good. Chris did send me a note. He'd seen me talking about George Clinton a few times on my channel, Funkadelic Parliament, and how it's difficult to find their records. So I think he stumbled across this in the wild by the sound of it whilst out digging, and he thought I would enjoy it. This is Jimmy G and the Tackheads, and the album The Federation of Tackheads. So this is part of the George Clinton kind of family tree. It's actually George Clinton's son. But George Clinton does play on the record as well. I think he produces it too, maybe. Yeah, all tracks produced by G. Clinton. And I'd heard some of this stuff in the past years ago, but I'd never actually owned any. And it's really good. It's kind of like really cool, sort of 80s, sort of, if you think like kind of early Prince kind of sound. Really, really cool stuff. The first track on the record is called Clockwork, and it's fantastic. It's got that kind of 80s Prince R&B vibe to it. Loved it. So there was that one, and then this one. This was a really interesting thing. I was trying to work out whether I would have picked this up myself or not. It's possible that I would have done, but it's equally possible that I might not have done. I don't know. This is the record's called "This Is Soccer," and it's by David Rudder and the band Charles Root. Now, David Rudder is a very, very well-renowned sort of calypso musician, calypso songwriter, working in that kind of Trinidadian music tradition. I think he came up in the 80s, and this is actually a double album. It contains one record of songs by David Rudder, and then the second album is the Soccer hits of 87. So Soccer is another variety of kind of early Jamaican music, but it was reimagined in the 1980s by a variety of different artists. So on this record you've got artists such as Scrunter, Shadow, Natasha, Gypsy, Baron, Duke, Pompeii, Rebels, Black Satin. I don't know any of these artists, but David Rudder there. But you've also got these other classic Trinidadian artists from back in the day, the Roaring Lion, Lord Pretender. You've got Lord Kitchener, of course, on the front. There he is there. I know some of these artists from a great CD compilation that was put out in the 90s by the label Honest John's, which was a label co-founded by Damon Albarn. They put out a great CD. It was called something like London is the Place for Me, and it was early calypso songs. So I didn't know a great deal about the 80s calypso revival, and I didn't know much about Soccer at all, but this is a really, really, really good album. It's very kind of vibey. It came out in 87 on Sire Records, and that was a very rich period for what came to be known as world music, in the late 80s. People like John Peel in the UK, and Andy Kershaw as well, both played a lot of really good international music, and it kind of led to a whole burgeoning movement, really. Think of people like Paul Simon and various people who started dabbling with world sounds, and it did lead to this really rich period. And what this record strongly reminds me of is that period where African sounds or Jamaican sounds or music from the Americas and Africa and other places just started to become popular again and started to gain traction. And it's a period that I feel quite nostalgic for now, and when I hear that music it kind of takes me back to those days, that kind of very open. It seemed like kind of all of a sudden there was a very open-ended attitude towards music and music broadcasting, and a lot of really great records came out. So yeah, I loved the vibe of this. Really, really, really nice, Chris. And like I said, might have been something that I might have passed over if I'd seen it, So yeah, brilliant. Chris, you're a gentleman. Okay, so Chris, I'm going to do a contest entry for you, but I don't want to go into the hat, okay? Because I feel like you've sent me these wonderful gifts, and I don't want you having to be posting things out to me again or funding me with an Amazon gift card. I'd much rather they go to somebody else, somebody who's not already enjoyed your generosity. So I'm going to do the contest entry, but I'm going to request that my name not go forward into the hat, if that's okay. Well, okay, so there are three things that Chris wants us to show. He wants us to show, because he's the blues guy, he wants us to show an album on blue vinyl. So I thought I would show my lovely reissue of Otis Blue by Otis Redding, which came out on blue vinyl a while ago. And I do have a couple of other blue albums. I've got a Motorhead album, I've got ELO's Out of the Blue on blue vinyl, but I thought I'd show that one because I've been enjoying some Otis Redding recently. More of that in a video, hopefully coming in the not too distant future. Chris also wanted us to show an album that chases the blues away, and there's all sorts of things I could have shown for this. In the end, I actually went for the Beach Boys' Summer Days. My ultimate Chase the Blues Away album is probably Pet Sounds, but that album's got a sort of melancholy streak to it. It's interesting. When you talk about chasing the blues away, sometimes it's not cheerful music or happy music that does that for you. It can be emotionally more complex music, I suppose, and that one would fall into that category, whereas this one is very, very summery. From the cover onwards, really. The songs are kind of upbeat, they're very wholesome sounding. Girl from New York City, Salt Lake City, Girl Don't Tell Me is such a beautiful tune, Help Me Rhonda, which is so uplifting, California Girls, Let Him Run Wild, which is one of Brian Wilson's most beautiful tunes, and then the wonderful song I'm Bugged at My Old Man is on this record too, which is a kind of classic teen song, about this teenager who's been grounded in his bedroom. My younger son loves that song, so yeah, that's always a great one for chasing the blues away. I mean, the Beach Boys, that Californian sound, who can not be cheered up by that, really? And the final thing Chris wanted us to show was an album made by a Canadian band. Now, this is the band, and they weren't all Canadian. 11 Helm was not from Canada, but I wanted to show them because it's quite an interesting group in that they sort of made their name doing this sort of southern rock music, which was meant to evoke all kinds of American influences. I mean, particularly from down south, the kind of blues and the rural country forms. But most of the band were from Canada, and Robbie Robertson was from Canada, but he was the main songwriter. And I've always thought that was an interesting dynamic, because the band are probably the ultimate group, or the ultimate group of artists that people talk about. If you want to talk about authenticity in music and just being true to yourself and having this kind of just this very authentic vision, and yet Robbie Robertson was working in a tradition which was not his own at all. And yeah, interesting stuff. I mean, 11 Helm, he was the drummer, and he was also one of the singers, and he did have an authentic kind of rural Southern American voice, but the rest of them were as Canadian as they come. Right, okay, so Chris also wanted us to show him a stank blues face. Now, I've decided not to do that, really. I've done this before. I'm gonna cut in a picture of me. About 4 or 5 years ago, there was a contest on the vinyl community, and it was something similar. So I'm gonna cut in a picture of myself from, I think it was about from 4.5 years ago, doing an appropriately blues stankish kind of face, and then I might also cut in my favourite blues shot ever of somebody doing a stank blues face. So hopefully that will do. So there we go, Chris. Thanks again for the wonderful gifts. Thanks for watching, folks, and I'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye bye.